Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Walk. I'm your host, Joshua Ingram. It is Monday, July 1st, year of our Lord 2024, and this is episode number 107. Anybody who regularly follows any of my stuff, really, any of the videos or podcasts that I do, you'll know that I've slowed way down on the amount of stuff I put out. And like I used to try to do something every day of the week. That was my goal originally. Teaching videos, documentary series on worldviews, the podcast, just, various different things. I had Monday through Friday filled up, and that was my goal, to stick with that. Just to, try to keep focus, try to stay spiritually minded. The world is abundantly full of distractions, and I find that the only way to stay on the straight and narrow, the only way to stay pure, is to stay focused. It's like you got to do your scripture reading in the morning, you got to have your prayer time. While I'm at work, I got, I'm listening to sermons or Christian podcasts or whatever, and then after work, when you got idle time, is when I find myself getting into trouble. And so I thought, this is a way to stay focused. I can limit the amount of idle time after work. I got 5 hours of free time, and if 2 of those hours can be taken up doing ministry, and then another 2 hours, at the gym, it really cuts back on the amount of time that temptation can work its way in. Plus, I heard a long time ago about the inflow-outflow theory. The Red Sea, Dead Sea. I've covered that before. I've talked about that numerous times. But if you're being filled spiritually, but you're not putting it back out into the world, stagnant? You become stagnant. And it's like the Dead Sea. It has no life in it because it has no outflowing rivers or tributaries or whatever. And so it's not enough to just fill yourself, to fill your soul with spiritual things, with prayer and worship and fellowship and scripture reading. You have to have some sort of outlet where you're putting back out into the world, where you're giving back. Whatever the Lord tells us in secret, we're supposed to proclaim out loud, and we're not supposed to hide our talents. We're supposed to barter and trade with them. And those parables mean that, you're supposed to use what the Lord teaches you, use the knowledge and the insights and the wisdom that God gives to share back into the world. And that creates a healthy spiritual life when you have the inflow and outflow going. You plug up either one of those. If you stop the inflow, you stop fellowshipping, you stop worshiping, you stop reading, you start praying, your spiritual life is going to suffer. But on the same end, if you stop the outflow, it's also going to suffer. That's the Dead Sea. The Red Sea has inflow and outflow and is full of life. And so that was always my theory. And plus I recognized how easily beset I am by sin. Just anytime I'm bored, anytime I'm idle, there's temptation everywhere, and my heart is just full of wickedness, and there's sin abounding. There's opportunities to sin everywhere. And so I recognized, how weak I am, how incapable I am of not falling into sin. I hate to use the word fall, too. I never like using that word. I know people always say, well, he fell into sin or he's backslid. slid, or he's fallen into temptation. I don't like that, because it's an active choice. We willfully, as Christians, we willfully choose to sin. We know right and wrong, and when we're going to do wrong, we're willfully choosing to do it. So you're not really falling, you're jumping over the edge. But anyways, I've slowed way down on everything spiritual, and I've spoke about this a lot. So I guess I'm just kind of giving an update. But I have felt miserable spiritually, and it's hard to even put into words. I can't really expound upon what's been. It's just hard to put into vocabulary, put into words, the things I've been experiencing internally. But I've felt despondent. I felt desperate. I felt like I'm spiritually drowning for a long time, for years now. It's just been this continual downward trajectory. Or one time I described it as, I feel like I'm in a swamp and I'm buried up to my chin. It's just, I'm barely above water, and I got vines holding me. I'm stuck in this swamp, and I just, every once in a while I'll get energy to try to fight, and I'll take a few steps forward, but those vines have a hold of me, and I just end up falling right back in, and it's exhausting. I feel weary. I feel like I'm stuck in a maze, and I have no way. I don't know how to get out. I have nowhere. Like, I don't know the way out. And it's been really hard for me to try to pinpoint what caused this, or what the purpose of it is. I've cried out to God numerous times, please, what is it I'm supposed to learn here? What is the lesson? Why these tribulations? Why these trials? And I've never been able to get an answer. And tragically, the worse things get, the worse I make it on myself, because the more and more depressed I get, the and I'm not talking like earthly depression. I'm talking about spiritual depression. The more I fall into that, the harder it is to work up the motive and energy to fight. It's like almost giving up. It's like, I've been knocked down on the battlefield. I've been knocked down into the mud, and just more and more mud is being piled on top of me. And every time I struggle to get up, there's a new pile dumped on. And so it's like I almost just want to just lay there and not move to avoid any more being added, because I can't get up. I can't escape. I don't know what to do. And so I've been dealing with this relatively quietly. I know I've expressed it a few times on the podcast, and I've expressed it at my Bible study and stuff, but I've mainly just been trying to maintain. Like, I had this philosophy that everything is just for a season. I had this philosophy, whatever it is the Lord's doing, whatever He's trying to teach me, it's just a season. So in the meantime, I gotta keep going through the motions. And so I've almost been on autopilot. I've been trying to go through the motions. I've been trying to stick with reading the scriptures, and that's why every once in a while I do one of these podcasts or a video, because I keep trying to go back to it. I keep trying to maintain, in the hopes that if I just keep going through those motions, if I just keep doing what I think I'm supposed to do, that eventually I'll come out of whatever this is. But it's been years now, and like I say, it's so defeating and so exhausting, and it's almost like you're losing hope but the reason it's hard to explain because, and the born again will understand this. There's a light inside of us. There's a spiritual light that is the Holy Spirit that I know is ever present. I always, even at my lowest, even at my worst, I know He's there, and I know He's not gonna. I'll never perish utterly. He's not gonna let me. There's always that hope. So even when I feel like I'm hopeless, it's almost like a contradiction, but not really. It's a paradox is a better word, not a contradiction. That while hopeless, I still maintain hope. There's always this lingering subconscious in the back of my mind, in my spirit, a seed of hope. Although outside of that seed of hope, I'm in desperate darkness. If that makes sense. And so it's made for a very difficult struggle the last few years, because what I've noticed is that when I'm depressed, when I'm really down, when I'm feeling defeated, it's not the spirit man that's feeling that, it's the flesh, which is weird, but and then when the flesh is at that low, sin becomes abundantly temptuous. Is that the word? Temptuous? Appealing? It becomes so much more appealing because the flesh is desperate for any sort of solace. The flesh just wants anything that will feel good, anything that will produce a feeling of joy. Even though it's fake, even though I know it's just going to lead for... It's like there's this head knowledge of this is going to bring destruction. If I do X, Y, and Z, I'm going to reap the repercussions. I'm gonna, you reap what you sow. You cannot play with sin and not have consequences. And I know that. And so I know every single time I sin that I'm just making my situation worse. But sin has a way of being so temptuous. I don't know if that's a real word. Is that a real word? It's so flattering, so appealing that it's like you'll trade the later destruction for present joy. That's the appeal of sin. Is like I'll take this, I'll eat this poisonous fruit because in the moment it's going to satisfy my taste buds. There's going to be some sort of pleasure for the flesh, even though I know it's going to cause health problems afterwards. And so like that's the insanity and the foolishness of the flesh and sin, is that especially when you're down, it's like I need something. I need anything to feel good. And so then I heap more and more destruction upon myself. And it's been that way, like I say, for a long time. And just recently I've gone through another ebb and flow where I've gone even lower because of sin. I turned to sin to satisfy the flesh, and I just keep bringing more and more destruction upon myself, to the point where it's terrifying, where it's like I don't want to suffer anymore. I don't want this despondency. And I hope I can piece this together, because I was thinking about it the other day. So I was trying to trace everything back to the root. Like, where did this start? Why am I so down? Why does everything just seem so horrible? And I've been trying to trace that back. And so it's like, why do I sin? And again, it's okay, it's to make the flesh feel good. Well, why is the flesh down? Well, because of my circumstances. Well, what about your circumstances are making you feel down? Well, I don't have X, Y, or Z. And so like I recognize, it's covetousness. I see other people who seem to be happier, seem to have something. Like, I was just thinking about this again. It's like I always get so down because I have this false perception where it's like I see other people and I see them focused on careers, and they're getting joy out of that, or focused on family and they're getting joy out of that, or they're focused on some sort of habit or hobby that they have, and they seem to be getting joy out of that, or they have some sort of ministry and or success in life. And I look at everybody and I say everybody has at least one thing. Everybody's got something out there that's bringing them joy. And then I look around at my life and I go, what do I have? This woe is me. So it's covetousness. I'm coveting other people rather than just being satisfied and content with the lot the Lord has given me. So then I think, why am I dissatisfied? Why, things could certainly be a lot worse. I have a home, I have food, I have, relatively decent health. I've got a job. I've got a few things I do that I enjoy. So it's like, things could be a lot worse. Why am I so dissatisfied? And I started realizing it's like the covetousness is me not trusting God. And I'll try to explain that. Pastor Piper said one time in a real famous sermon that all sin is unbelief. And I never understood that, because I would look at it and I'd go, well, how is lust unbelief? Or how is, this unbelief? How is that unbelief? But I think I grasp a little bit of what he was saying, because the covetousness, I see it now. I see a root of unbelief. And that unbelief is God has promised to his children, to the born again, to work all things for good. Like that's such it's almost cliche. We quote that as Christians so frequently, and it's been a mantra of me and my fellowship over and over and over again. Like, because we're always focused on sovereignty, and it's like that's a key verse on sovereignty, that everything that happens in your life is planned by God for good. There's a good and holy purpose in it, no matter what. No matter how bad it may seem, he has good on the other end. There's a good end to it. And so when I look at my circumstances and I complain, oh, woe is me, why don't I have this? Why don't I have that? And it's not a why, like it's not that selfish. It's more subtle. I'm expressing it in that way, but it's a lot more subtle. It's just like, Lord, I'm alone. I don't have a ministry. I don't really care about my career. I don't care about monetary gain or success. I'm not a materialistic person. I don't buy into the American dream nonsense. So what do I have? It's more, it's a lot more subtle than just, oh, I want this, I want riches, I want gain. It's not that. It's just looking at my life and thinking there's no purpose. There's no effect. Like I'm just I don't know, a nobody. I'm just I'm not really doing anything that affects anything. I don't have anybody. There's nobody that needs me. There's nobody. Well, I'm not going to get into all the woe is me type stuff, but I hope you get what I'm saying. It's just like, what is this, Lord? And so then I started seeing that it's like, I'm not trusting God. I'm complaining about the lack instead of just being satisfied with where I'm at, what he's given me, and trusting that he has good and holy purposes in this. So when I trace everything back to the root, It is unbelief. It's saying, God, I don't know. I don't, everything seems so bad for such a prolonged period of time that I no longer know whether or not you really are working for my good. And what if, because it's not that, the verse says what it says, so I believe it. But I've always looked at it like, well, maybe the good that's being worked out is at the end. It's just the eternal glory. And in the meantime, I've just got to go through misery. Everything's got to suck. I've got to, I'm going to have a horrible, meaningless, lonely, miserable life. And in the end, when I die and I'm in glory, I'll see the good of it. But in the meantime, I get nothing. And that's where my complaining comes from. Because I look at everybody and I go, Lord, how come I'm the only one? That's what it seems like. How come everybody else has something? Why don't I have anything? Why don't I get something? Why do I have to... It feels like I'm the only one that, like, why do I have to be the one that gets nothing in this life? I don't get... the ministry. I don't get the riches. I don't get the family. I don't get the spouse. I don't get the whatever, I get nothing. And it's hard to understand that that's a lie when all I see is people finding joy in something. I look around and I see everybody else I know finding joy in something. They've got something in their life that seems to be satisfying them, that seems to be bringing them happiness. And I'm looking at mine going, where's mine? What you ever if just made me think, if you've ever seen the movie Office Space, Milton, when they're handing out the birthday cake. And, he's about to eat his piece, and the lady's next to him like, hold on, pass it down, make sure everybody gets a piece. And so he does, and at the end, he's got nothing, and he's left out. He's the only one who didn't get a piece, and that's how I feel sometimes. And I get that can't be true, but it's hard to understand that when everybody I see has a piece of birthday cake. I look around, and everybody's got cake except for me. And I'm like, well, what do I have? It's like, Lord, I'd be happy, just give me a sliver. Give me a tiny piece. Give me a crumb. At least I got something. Something I can say, okay, at least I got this. And for a long time, I had my hope that, well, it was going to be maybe a wife. I felt like early on in my Christian walk, I felt like the Lord had impressed upon me that he would eventually give me a wife. But here I am 20 years later and I'm still single. And it's like, okay, well, I guess not. And then, I had hope that maybe I'll have a ministry. Maybe I'll be able to do something for the Lord. And in a sense I do. So I guess I do have a crumb. This is what I'm doing. And every time I start thinking about, like, Lord, what is it I'm supposed to do? I come back to this. It's like, just do what the Lord has laid it on your heart to do. Do the 5 things, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Do those ministries. And even if the podcast is only getting 4 listens a week, and even if the video you post only has like 3 views, like, that part is irrelevant. It's just do it. Just put it out there. Just keep doing these things. And I get that. It's like, I get that's what I'm supposed to be doing. My ministry, what the Lord wants from me, the tiny little sliver of cake that I get, the talent that I get, the little tiny, like, some people got 1 talent, some people got 10, whatever, some people got 5, whatever it was in that parable. If I got 1 tiny tenth of a talent, 1 tiny sliver, like, that's okay. And so, like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. But I just get so wrapped up in looking at everybody else seeming to have fun in life and seeming to have people to enjoy it with, and having goals and purpose. And like, I just, and people, a lot of people would say, well, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and go do something. That is impossible when you don't have any ambition. When there's no motive, like I don't have a strong enough desire to, like, people say, well, go get a wife. You gotta go where you can find a woman. You gotta go to church. You gotta go do this and that. And it's like, well, I don't desire it enough to motivate me to take action. If that makes any sense. It's such a contradiction in ideas, in that I want something, but I don't want anything specific enough to go get it. I just want, I don't know, I'm it's hard to explain. I'm not a man of ambition, because my only ambition is to do something for the Lord, to receive from the Lord and to do for the Lord. I just want a connection with Him, which I have, and I just want to be able to express those glories. And in the meantime, I just want Him to provide me with a modicum of satisfaction in life. Just some sort of comfortable life, and let me speak about the glories of God. Let me meditate on the things of God. Let me enjoy the things of God. And in the meantime, have a little bit of comfort. And I guess I do, It's just my focus has been so off, because, again, I look around at everybody else doing something else, being satisfied with other things, and it just creates that covetousness. And then covetousness breeds disappointment, and disappointment breeds unbelief. So it all comes back to that unbelief. When you're disappointed, then you find yourself complaining and grumbling against God. And that's showing that, God, I don't trust you. You say you have good for me, but I'm so dissatisfied. Where's the good? And it's such a messed up circle that I've just, like a gerbil, I've just been running on this circle for years now. Just dissatisfied with everything. And so I had that moment of clarity the other day, where I traced it back to unbelief, and it was like, okay, I need to stop thinking about, what everybody else has, and just focus on, things are okay. Things that, like I said, I've got a house, I've got furniture, I've got entertainment, I've got a gym membership, I've got a cupboard full of food, I've got clothing. I'm never sleeping outside. I'm not, cold at night and getting rained on. I'm comfortable. Things are okay. And it would be nice to have companionship. I would desire a spouse, but again, there's covetousness. Maybe the Lord's will for me is not to have one. And I should be okay with that. Instead of thinking, I'm just always thinking about what I don't have. And it just creates this misery that leads to destruction. Because then, like I say, the misery leads to sin being a lot more tempting. And then you do the sin, and that leads to more misery. And it's just this vicious cycle of destruction. And I really, really, really hope I'm coming out of it, because it has been such a long cloudy journey. Like, I've been under this weight, under this cloud for, I think, since 2018. So 6 years now, 5.5, maybe 6 years, approaching 6 years. I think it was towards the end of 2018 where this all started. And I want to be out from it. And I feel like that the way to get out from it is to stop thinking about what I don't have and stop worrying about what I think I ought to have, and being dissatisfied with my lot, and to just be thankful and grateful for what I do have, and to focus on that, to just do what I'm supposed to do. The Lord has given me a very simple, regimented life. It's very simplistic. Wake up, go to work, listen to sermons, listen to wholesome, edifying podcasts. He allows me to have some entertainment. I'll watch YouTube videos or something like that. And then when I'm done with work, they got prayer time and 5 days a week, some sort of ministry vehicle. On Saturdays, fellowship. Sundays, I should be doing church and evangelism. And then just repeat the cycle, and then go to the gym, come home, go to bed, and do it over. Very simple life. And if I stick to that, I feel like that's all I need to do. But I start looking at it and I get just so wrapped up in what other people have and become so dissatisfied. And it shouldn't be that way. And there's other aspects of it. There's like this fear of what people think. Like, oh, people look at me and think I'm a loser. They think I'm just a bum. I've got no career goals. I've got no family life. I've got nothing. And so I there is a part of me that fears that. Like, what are people saying about me? What are people thinking about me? But that's foolish too. It shouldn't matter. Like, if this is the goal the Lord has put in front of me, then He will be pleased if I follow through on it. And so I need to do that. And not get distracted, not become covetousness. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to fail. I'm not going to be able to, it's impossible. Well, not impossible with the Lord's help. I mean, if the Lord stirs me up and motivates me, I'm sure I could do it, but I'm going to fail some days. There'll be some days where I don't do the podcast, or there'll be some days where I don't do a video, or I skip the gym or something like that. And that's okay, but then I just reset the next day. It's when I start looking at everybody else's life, that's where or when I start saying, because the other problem is, we have and I know this isn't just me, because I've heard it from other brothers too. We have a tendency to adapt to what we have currently. And when that goes away, we complain. And so, like, I don't know, I'm laying on a nice, comfortable couch right now. Like, let's say the couch breaks and I got to use my futon now. Like, there would be complaining in my heart, where instead of that, it ought to just be acceptance. Like, okay, the Lord gives, the Lord takes away. Or if you lose a job, okay, that's fine. But when things go away, there's also a complaint that occurs, which again, I suppose is a form of coveting. So it's looking back instead of looking forward. Coveting what other people have is a desire to have that in the future. Coveting what you once had is looking back and saying, "Oh man, things were better then." In both cases, it's wrong. We need to live in satisfaction in the moment by moment. Like, right now, things are okay because this is what the Lord has planned for me. This is what the Lord has purposed for me. And His plans are good. His plans are holy. And in the next moment, if something changes, that's okay. That's what the Lord has planned. That's what the Lord has purposed. And His plans are good and holy. Each and every step, it's like one step at a time. And each one, we should be satisfied. But it's just the heart. I've heard it said the heart is an idol factory. We'll make idols out of everything. We start to we want and we get used to. And when changes happen, it breeds destruction as well. So I think that the goal is to just be satisfied. You know, if the Lord puts me in a prison cell for the rest of my life, and it's like, man, when I was young in my faith and I was so zealous, I had that mindset. I remember I got saved in jail, and I remember laying there and counting the cost. I remember laying there and thinking, okay, I'm 20 years old. If I lived to an average life of 72 or whatever it was, let's say I got 50 years left. Let's say I spend the rest of those lives, the rest of those years in a dungeon, in a prison cell. And I was like, I remember counting the cost, thinking, that's fine. My sins are forgiven. I'm going to heaven when I die. 50 years is nothing compared to eternity. It's okay. I thought, man, even if I got to sit and be tortured for the next 50 years, that's fine. That's nothing. It's 50 years. It's a blink of an eye compared to eternity. And I was satisfied with that. And somewhere along the way, I lost that satisfaction. I became too wrapped up in possessions and desires. And so I'm cautiously hoping, because I don't know what the Lord has planned for me. Maybe He brings me even lower now, and to see, is this wisdom a reality in your heart? And I'm not going to say that because the Lord doesn't torture, but who knows? The idea is whatever the next phase is, whatever the next step is, I should be satisfied. And I want to be, because living in covetousness and living in this unholy desire for something, and living in just materialism or whatever it is, I don't know how to exactly quantify what I'm trying to say, but it's misery. It begets misery. And I'm sick and tired of being miserable. It affects everything. It's ruined my life for the last 6 years, psychologically, emotionally. It's like I say, I put on a front and I just keep marching forward. I'm not a big woe is me type guy, so even when I'm expressing my frustrations, I say it with a smile. So I give the appearance like, Josh is gonna be okay. He's all right, even though inside I'm just miserable, just unhappy, and I want to be done with that, man. I'm so sick and tired of it. It's just very, very wearisome and hard. So I hope the Lord's bringing me out of it. But yeah, that's my thoughts. I just wanted to share where I'm at lately. All right, so that's what I got for you guys this week. As always, I truly appreciate you listening. I love you, and Lord willing, we'll talk to you next time.